Everyone knows that Cold is one of the best fighters in all of North America Central, if not the world, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at how he dropped a massive 20 plus kill elimination in the Solo Victory Cash Cup Open. Cold is landing at Retail Row and decides to land at Doghouse, and his drop gets him an easy elimination off spawn. As he lands and gets a shotgun, the opponent that lands on his building gets fried by another opponent, and Cold simply goes and uses his shotgun to clean up that elimination. After picking up that elimination, Cold uses a rift to leave Retail Row and go over to a fight by Dusty Divot, where there's a significant amount of more players. He starts off by singling out this opponent, hitting a nice Mongrel Classic, not once, but twice, and finishing the fight incredibly quickly. After picking up that elimination, he is immediately third-partied, and Cold starts off the fight incredibly well. He waits for the opponent to double pickaxe on his wall, and he gets a nice shield crack. However, Cold makes the same exact mistake as he pushes the opponent's box and tries to force a ramp in, taking a huge amount of damage when he double swings his pickaxe. He then tries to pre-fire the opponent, and they end up trading, both getting down to very low HP. Cold is then forced to back off and get his heals up. After getting his shield off, he immediately sprays the opponent and cracks his shield again, but the worst case scenario happens. A third party rolls up, and Cold is now in a very awkward situation between two opponents with no materials. Take a look at how slow and passive and methodical Cold plays this. He extends a lot of space and methodically doesn't tunnel vision one opponent, cracking one opponent's shield, that is the third party, and then as the other opponent tries to spray through on Cold's box, he immediately edits a ramp and one punts him to get a much needed refresh of materials. After getting that much needed refresh, Cold is once again stuck between multiple teams. He uses a ramp to peek for information and breaks another opponent's bush. He then also hits the opponent once again that is sitting above him trying to third party initially. That other opponent with the bush eventually gets taken out, and Cold reboxes and creates space, switching up his angles, and gets a free elimination on the very weak third party opponent. After getting that elimination, he can now deal with the third party that has been here the entire time. He uses the grapple to get some quick height, gets a little bit of chip damage, and then cracks the opponent's shield. Take a look at what he does when he's on the opponent's wall. Once he attempts to take the wall, he actually takes the wall and the ramp at the same time and edits both very quickly, getting an easy elimination on this third party opponent. Believe it or not, after picking up this elimination, he is once again third partied while trying to take the medkit. The opponent over-aggresses right on the wall, and Cold times it perfectly, cracking the opponent for shield. The other opponent then runs away panicked with a grapple, and Cold gets a couple of chip shots with his AR, then immediately jumps on the opponent's wall, predicts that he's going to end up getting a free elimination without taking any damage. After picking up that elimination and getting back to full HP, he eventually ends up taking a rift and going to Salty Springs, where he sees this one opponent on top of a house. They get into a fight, and Cold takes a little bit of damage and pops a big. As the opponent tries to aggress, he once again, just like in the last fight, hits the opponent significantly hard. As the opponent backs off and tries to heal, Cold immediately pressures with the AR, taking the wall and sliding in the cone at the same time, and one pumping the opponent, getting a free elimination. After picking up that elimination, he takes the rift in Salty and immediately heads towards the big mountain just outside of the POI. He sees a fight just finish up, and he uses the grapple and AR to get the wall weak and take the wall first try. He edits a nice 4-tile, cracking the opponent's shield, and as the opponent tries to ramp away, uses his AR to spray, slide in a cone, crack his shield again, and then he edits a nice 6-wide tile since he's at significant health advantage and he wants as much visibility to eliminate the opponent. After this, he once again takes a rift and heads towards Paradise and finds a grapple and uses it to third party a fight just outside of Paradise. As he runs up onto these opponents, he uses the grapple to get an easy elimination on a weak opponent who was attempting a chop. As he lands, he immediately places a front wall, a cone, and 2 back walls to essentially full piece the opponent, crack his shield, reset, and then finish up the fight with a very nice, easy, clean double kill. After that double kill, he once again takes another rift and sees this bush opponent just outside of Retail. He lands a tree and gets a good amount of damage with the AR, and as the opponent tries to edit up, he places a wall and a ramp, flipping it and getting an easy one pump with the spaz. After this elimination, he immediately runs into another opponent just outside of where he was. They get into a little bit of a build fight, and Cold does a good job of protecting all of his angles as third parties try to shoot them. The best case scenario happens, and his opponent that he's build fighting ends up getting sniped. when he jumps right on the opponent's wall, he actually does a good job of making sure to block off the angle where that opponent got sniped from. He does get the wall and a ramp immediately, but does fumble a little bit mechanically, but gets a nice cleanup with good crosshair placement and aim as the opponent is trying to run away. After picking up that elimination, he immediately gets into another fight with an opponent just outside retail at Castle. He uses the grappler to get up and get a little bit of chip damage, and we see some nice piece control and a huge shield crack. As the opponent tries to build up, Cold shows off his very advanced mechanics as he effortlessly moves through and eventually gets the opponent to edit on him, where he places a ramp over them, hits the Mongol Classic, and one pumps him. After picking up this elimination, an opponent actually riffs right on his head. He gets a good amount of chip damage, and as he tries to push the opponent, we actually see a couple rare misses from Cold with the Mongol Classic and a floor edit. Eventually, the opponent tries to back off and heal up, and Cold switches his angle instead of in front of him, going over the top to get a nice little back wall and hit a peanut butter edit to crack the opponent's shield, and just like previously, added a nice wide open 6-tile since he's at significant health advantage and finishing the fight without taking any damage. He once again takes a rift and goes back to Dusty Divot, where he sees his opponent just running inside the crater. He uses the AK to get a good amount of AR damage, then immediately pushes with his grapple. As the opponent is reboxing, Cold gets a lot of double edits and then edits down on the opponent, trying to get the front wall. He doesn't get it, but he recognizes the opponent is cut off and only has one escape route, where Cold pre-boxes and gets a free elimination with his shotgun. He once again goes back to retail after this elimination and runs into a bushed opponent just outside of the POI. He uses the AK to break the opponent's bush and sits on a right-hand peak right in front of the opponent's box. The opponent makes the horrible mistake of editing right on Cold, and Cold hits a massive 150 plus pump shot. As he approaches the opponent's box, the opponent does not do a good job of protecting his build, and Cold claims a wall right in front of him, slides in a cone, actually captures the opponent in the cone, and gets a free elimination with a shotgun and taking no damage. Cold is then going to push this opponent up on the high ground and fully build metal. As Cold eventually spends a little bit of time pressuring the walls, he eventually gets the wall and a ramp and hits a nice little variant of the Mongol Classic for over 110 damage. The opponent does a good job of running away and is able to get a little bit of shield off, but after scuffing a bouncer and Cold once again cracks his shield, Cold sees the opponent sit, trying to take a shield, and immediately takes all the pieces, edits down the floor and the ramp, and hits a nice one pump on the opponent. After this, another opponent, who at his previous build fight, shoots him for around 50 plus damage. Cold goes back to that body to try and pop a big, but sees the opponent jump right on his wall. Fortunately, he misses a shot, but Cold goes into God mode and tries to hit this flip, actually only trading with the opponent and nearly getting one pump. He, though, immediately switches up his tactic and gets a nice right-hand peek since he has full piece control and cleans up the fight, even though that could have been a disastrous way to go down. After this, Cold immediately grapples up to another opponent sitting on the mountain and takes a huge amount of damage, unfortunately. But Cold once again clutches up as the opponent double pickaxe swings on his wall. Cold hits a max damage pre-fire and completely backs the opponent off, allowing him to get his heals off. Cold eventually pressures the opponent so much that the opponent actually tries to disengage, and Cold gets a free elimination in the sky from a rift. After this, Cold immediately goes to the opponent that was third party him just outside the mountain. Now, this opponent is not very skilled, and this is a perfect example of not taking your enemies seriously enough. As he gets the wall and takes it first try, he opens and breaks the bush with one AR tag. He opens a wide open window edit and actually gets out-traded for a significant amount of damage. As he tries to jump up and pre-fire, he once again misses a shot, and now Cold only has a big to get off. Fortunately, he gathers himself and immediately starts playing smart, once again creating space and then editing on the opponent, hitting him for 70, faking the big, and as the opponent tries to bake minis, the skill of that opponent is shown as he sprays through with AK and ends up finishing the fight, even though that probably should have been a lot cleaner. After sliding down the mountain, Cold runs into another opponent who is hiding in a cone. After trading some AR tags, Cold decides to eventually 50-50 in the opponent's box since he did not place a cone. Unfortunately for Cold, he ends up missing the shot and gets into a very risky situation. Fortunate for Cold, he's able to hold the ramp when the opponent shoots the shotgun, and he drops down and eventually does hit a nice one pump. But this could have all been avoided if he had taken this a little bit slower. After this, you can tell Cold is starting to feel it as he pushes the next opponent hitting an edit course. As he jumps right on the opponent's wall, he ends up actually taking it and switching up his angle after getting a good amount of tags with his Scar. He immediately jumps on a right hand peek and then gets the back wall and hits a nice one pump, cleaning up this opponent. There's only a couple of opponents left, and Cold is starting to really show off his mechanics here, basically edit coursing anybody he sees. After getting a significant amount of damage on this opponent, I don't know what happens if he tabbed out or something disconnected, but this allows the opponent to get up on high ground and get some heals off. Cold immediately begins cranking retakes and gets a nice right hand peek on the opponent, but misses the shot and takes a huge amount of damage. He nearly goes down after once again getting a wall on the opponent and then editing a right hand peek, but fortunately for Cold, the opponent did not hit him that hard and eventually cleans him up, making the 1v1 for the Victory Royale a lot more difficult than it needed to be. For the 1v1, Cold is fortunate enough that this opponent is not super skilled. Essentially, he sits on the wall and Cold hits him with a nice free fire after getting a mini off, and as the opponent still continues to sit on the wall, take a look at the movement as he ducks very far to the left and eventually hits another one pump shot, thus getting the 24 kill Victory Royale. Well guys, that's going to do it for today's VOD review. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please drop a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on post notifications. And I hope I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.